It's got to clearly depend on how bad the shot is, though. Because if you get fouled and knocked unconscious and then you come back,
you're just going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
If you get knocked out, that's why boxing, right?
Comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms.
It was like a big part of it is speed. Anthony Joshua has that kind of speed.
Joe Rogan reacted to Jake Paul being hospitalized after his knockout loss to Anthony Joshua while speaking with Daniel Cormier. Rogan highlighted how brutal the punch looked and warned that boxing is an extremely dangerous sport. He explained that clean shots at heavyweight level can cause serious, lasting damage, stressing that outcomes are never predictable and the consequences can stay with fighters for life.
You look like you're out cold.
He was
and then
done.
He outboxed him for the rest of the round.
How? But again, in MMA, fight probably would have been over, and he would have took less damage.
Right, but isn't that a better argument for letting him get up?
Sports doctor Brian Sutterer analyzed the aftermath of Jake Paul's knockout loss in a calm, medical-focused breakdown. He said the fight outcome wasn't surprising, but real concern began when Paul feared his jaw was broken. Sutterer explained a jaw fracture was very possible, given how Anthony Joshua's right hand landed flush on the left side of Paul's face. However, he stressed that a concussion was the greater concern. Jaw injuries often take a back seat initially to more dangerous risks involving the brain, neck, or airway. The violent rotation of Paul's head from the punch likely sent strong rotational force through the brain and brainstem, significantly increasing concussion risk. Even though Paul wasn't fully unconscious, Sutterer warned delayed symptoms were still possible, noting Paul's immediate shock showed he knew something serious had happened.
And we got the outcome that we all expected. After the fight, though, Jake told Ariel Helwani that he was worried that he had broke his jaw. He said multiple times he was concerned that he had a fractured jaw. And certainly looking at this knockout punch that Anthony Joshua delivers, it is absolutely a possibility that Jake does in fact have a jaw fracture. I'd honestly be more concerned about a concussion. In fact, with most jaw fractures, the more important thing initially is to look for other injuries to the head, to the neck, to the airway. The jaw fracture potentially being there or not is going to be lower on the list often than whether there's damage to the airway, damage to the head. And so very possible to have a concussion or some residual symptoms from this, as Jake Paul's head is relatively still here. We see AJ comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms. But you can see where the punch comes in, landing square on that left side of Paul's face. Jake's reaction was pretty telling too. Right away after it, we could see him going down on the canvas here and being very shocked. It doesn't look like there's any obvious deformity to the jaw. We won't necessarily always see a deformity to the jaw, but you could tell he clearly had realized that something serious had happened there and feeling the full power of AJ's right. And finally, on this last view, we can see a little bit better the exact location where the punch comes in. We'll talk about our jaw anatomy, the different areas of the bones, but your temporomandibular joint, where your jaw articulates with the rest of your skull, is sitting right around in this area, and the jaw is roughly coming down in this orientation. And so where that punch comes in from Joshua is a little bit more kind of flush right in the center of the mandible, but also up close near that temporomandibular joint.
Joe Rogan had warned before the fight that it wouldn't end well for Jake Paul. He said Jake was used to older or retired opponents, but facing one of the world's best heavyweights was a huge leap. Rogan cautioned the skill gap would be dangerous and unforgiving.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
What do you think about Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua?
Boy. Well, realistically, it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division. Maybe we should watch the Francis Ngannou fight so you could see. Let's watch that real quick, just so you can see what Anthony Joshua is capable if he's fighting someone that's not in his league. Okay, look, Usyk beat him, and he beat him twice, and Andy Ruiz caught him in the first fight and dropped him and stopped him. It was spectacular.
The aftermath of Jake Paul stepping into the ring with Anthony Joshua sparked intense debate across the boxing world. While some fans praised Paul for his courage in facing such a dangerous opponent, many respected analysts pushed back against that narrative. Luke Thomas was among the most critical voices, arguing that the praise was wildly overstated. According to Thomas, Jake was being applauded simply for surviving rather than truly competing. He pointed out that Joshua did not fight at full intensity and appeared to deliberately hold back throughout much of the bout. From Thomas's perspective, this was not a competitive boxing match, but a controlled situation in which an elite heavyweight showed restraint. He argued that Paul's performance showed no meaningful tactical growth or high-level skill, noting that Jake looked overwhelmed, struggled to engage, and failed to demonstrate a genuine intent to win.
I initially watched the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight. I think I would say that my conclusions now still match most of what I said when I was watching on the initial broadcast, which is that Joshua, he did look a little rusty to me. I'm sorry, but he did. That Jake is, probably a little bit better than we suggested he might be. When I say we, I mean like the hardcore fight community, the fight fans, the people who work in the industry to a degree. Sometimes there is a suggestion that he can't do anything. And I would be like, well, that's a little much. He can do stuff. I mean, it's limited what he can do. It's very limited what he can do. But there is a little bit too much anger towards him sometimes, or just dismissiveness, maybe is a better way to put that. And I don't really co-sign on some of that. He's got some ability. He's not good. Listen to me very carefully. He's not good. But is he the caricature that he is sometimes made out to be in terms of his pure boxing skill? I think it goes a little overboard sometimes. But that isn't the reason why I wanted to make this video. What I wanted to make this video about is two things. One, after the fight was over, I got on social media and people were like hugely negative about the fight. And I did not think that the fight was good. In fact, I thought the fight was, like most Jake Paul fights, pretty bad, although him surviving kind of feeds into the story of him being perhaps a little bit better than we sometimes think, although I don't really co-sign on that. Let me make the point. The first point is, I think people are overreacting a little bit. A little bit. People were suggesting when I got on social media that this was like the biggest farce they'd ever seen in their life, and that this was, how could he fight like this, and this was a disaster, and Joshua should have got him out there earlier. There is probably some evidence to suggest that I don't think Joshua was carrying him in the sense of, hey, they coordinated this ahead of time. But was Joshua really stepping on the gas? No, I don't think he was really stepping on the gas. There were times I think he clearly pulled his punches.
Lawrence Iwaki approached the situation from a different angle, but reached a similarly critical conclusion. Rather than focusing on technique or hype, he emphasized the inherent danger of boxing itself. Iwaki explained that one mistake in the ring can end a fight instantly, regardless of fame, confidence, or preparation. From his perspective, Jake Paul stepping in with a fighter like Anthony Joshua was reckless. He stressed that boxing is unforgiving, and mismatches do not become acceptable simply because they generate attention or revenue. Iwaki described the decision to take the fight as unnecessary and foolish, pointing out how easily the outcome could have been far worse. Despite the criticism, some voices acknowledged Jake Paul's willingness to take punishment and continue. Following the fight, reports confirmed that Paul was taken to the hospital with a serious jaw injury. For a few commentators, this became evidence of toughness. They argued that regardless of performance, Jake showed courage by stepping into the ring with a fighter of Joshua's caliber. These reactions focused less on skill and more on resilience. However, even among those offering limited praise, support stopped short of recognizing Jake as a legitimate professional boxer. The narrative centered on bravery, not ability. In boxing, taking damage earns respect, but it does not redefine a fighter's standing. Courage without competitiveness is not enough, and Jake's injury ultimately reinforced concerns about whether such matchups should happen at all.